Alright, so this is exercise 2 of the diagram window course, and what we will do in this exercise is sort of build upon the exercise number 1 that we did last time, but now expand it so that we're including placing some graphics items and controlling those graphics items on the diagram window. So here is the exercise. So again, we're dealing with one-dimensional collisions. In this case, though, you're going to have to model those collisions as either being elastic, so perfectly elastic, which means that kinetic energy and linear momentum are conserved, or perfectly inelastic, which means that linear momentum is conserved but kinetic energy is not. Instead, the final velocity of the two objects are the same. So you need to put a switch or some kind of control on the diagram window GUI that allows you to switch between those two modes, right? So what you're going to do is, first of all, just solve this problem in a way that lets you switch between those two modes, and then once that's working, we'll go ahead and build a GUI using the diagram window that allows the user to enter inputs like mass and velocity. Again, we'll do that in pounds mass and feet per second, and then based on a toggle, so probably a string list, you'll want to go between displaying either two billiard balls for the elastic collision or two lumps of clay. That would be more consistent with an inelastic collision. And of course, you'll need a button to initiate calculations, and once the calculations are done, you'll want to display the final velocity of both objects. So you can find graphics objects for a billiard ball or a lump of clay just by searching online, or if you follow the link in the description, you can also get those objects that way. So yeah, I'll give you some time to go ahead and try this on your own, and then the rest of this video is dedicated to going through the solution so you can see how I would do it. Okay, so I'm going to start from at least the equations window that we ended with for exercise number 1. So this was again sort of solving the underlying engineering problem before we went on to solve to create the GUI that allowed people to control it. So here I have a dollar if not diagram window clause in everything that I need to have set to solve the problem. If the diagram window is not providing those inputs, is put inside of here. So here's the two masses and the two initial velocities. And if you remember, exercise 1 only dealt with an elastic collision. So these are the equations that I would want to solve if I have a perfectly elastic collision. And now for this exercise, of course, we want to be able to switch between elastic or inelastic. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a string variable. Maybe we'll call it collision $, I could spell, and I can either set that to elastic, in which case these are the equations I want to solve, or I can set that to inelastic, in which case I want to solve a different set of equations. So I can use a $if directive here. So $if collision $equals elastic. Then I want to solve these equations, so $end if. And let's just stop and make sure that works. So here I'll solve, and sure enough, I get my elastic solution. But I also want to be able to set this to inelastic, and if that's the case, we will solve a different set of equations. So if the collision $is inelastic like this, then I still want to solve the conservation of linear momentum, but I do not want to conserve kinetic energy. Instead, what I know is that v1f is equal to v2f. So the velocities are the same. So now if I switch this string variable from elastic to inelastic and solve, yeah, sure enough, you can see that I'm solving for my inelastic solution here. Alright, so I think at this point I have figured out the engineering problem, right? And what I'd really like to do now is give somebody other than me control over this program, basically. So I need to develop a GUI. So we'll do that with the diagram window. So let's bring up the diagram window, And here it's already in application mode, so I can do whatever I need to do here. So a couple things I'm going to want to do. Obviously I'm going to want to put inputs for all of these masses and velocities. So I'll go ahead and do that. So this is an input variable, M1. I want to be able to do this in alternate units, so people will enter that in pounds, and we'll hit OK. So maybe we'll move this down here in anticipation of a graphics object. What else do I want? I want an input variable that's v1 initial. Same thing, alternate units. Okay, so that looks okay. And then input variable m2, alternate units. And that probably will go over here because that's going to be underneath my other object. And then finally, input variable v2 initial, alternate units. And that goes there. So what else do I need? I need to show the outputs. So I will select output variable. And the two outputs are the two velocities. So v1 final, again in alternate units. So we'll put that underneath v1. And v2 final. So I'll put v2 final, alternate units. That will go over here. Alright, to complete the GUI, what I need also here would be a calculate button. So that's this button right here, calculate button. And a calculation button. I need an input that lets me switch between elastic and inelastic collision. So that's just making that string variable an input. So here, input variable, and we'll select collision dollar. And of course I don't want people to be able to enter just any string. There's only two that will make sense, so I'll use a string list and confine people to entering either elastic or inelastic. And we'll hit OK and OK, and maybe move that up there. It's maybe not necessary or really attractive to show the name of the variable here, so I will probably double click on that and uncheck the include variable name box, and now I just get this drop down list. And I think all that's left then is putting an object on here that I can control, right? So at this point, even if I do nothing else, if I put it into application mode, I can switch between elastic and inelastic, and based on my inputs here, I can calculate the final velocity. So that's elastic collision. And for the same two masses going at the same velocity, if I switch to inelastic and hit calculate, that's the final velocity. So I have the two graphics objects that I need in the same directory as this ease file. So if you look at my my directory, I have the ease file, and then I have one called billiardball.jpg and one called clay.jpg. And those are the ones that I want to switch between. So as we discussed in the previous video, what I want to do then is put on this diagram window a picture item, or actually two picture items, and then I want to programmatically control the file that the picture item controls. So here's the add picture from file, and initially I just have to pick a file name. So I'm going to pick the billiard ball. It doesn't matter because, like I said, I'll change that. And I'm going to call this picture 1. And we'll hit OK. And I can put this sort of where I'd like it. And then I'm going to add another one. And again, maybe we'll make it the billiard ball as well. And I'm going to call this one picture 2. And we'll hit OK. And we'll move that over here. Okay. So picture 1 dot, so we can look at this real quick. Picture 1 dot file name $sign is going to let me control the file name that I display here, and picture 2 dot file name $sign will do the same thing. So those are things I want to set in the equations window, and I want to set them based on the value of collision $sign, right? Yeah, let's go ahead and try to do that. So if I am in this clause, so this clause being collision $ equals elastic, I would like to set picture1 dot file name $ equal to, and here I need the full path for that billiard ball object. So I'm just gonna call it billiardball.jpg, and I think it will look in this directory that the ease file is in. I'll do the same thing here. Picture1.filename, but here I want it to look and do clay.jpg. And yeah, I want to do the same thing for picture2. So let's do picture2. Oops. Picture2.filename is also going to be billiard ball, or also clay, depending on where I'm at. So let's go back to here and see if it works. So here, if I am, let's go to application mode. So if I have an inelastic collision, I hit calculate, I get clay. They're too big. We'll fix that here in a second. If I have an elastic collision, I hit calculate, I get 2 billiard balls. So I'm almost done. Probably the last thing I'd like to do is maybe move these around a little bit. So here, I don't know, let's move these down just a little bit so that they are a little more proportional, and probably set the size of the object so that they're the same. So let's see, this one's about 372 and 371, so that seems like what I would want them both to be set at. So let's go ahead and do picture1.width equals, maybe let's just make it 350. Picture1.height is equal to 350. Picture2.width is equal to 350, and picture2.height is equal to 350. So hopefully that fixes that. So let's go back to here and go to development mode. So yep, the billiard balls are about right, and the lumps of clay are about right. So I am now able to have this GUI that does pretty much everything that we asked it to do.